Good morning friends and welcome to Galaxy Online Learning. I am Sunil Desai and today we are going to study the second lesson of history. But before that, I would like to remind you that those who have not registered yet, please get yourself registered as early as possible and avail of our study pack. Get your study pack so that you can start learning, start reading. Okay, don't waste time. Okay, as soon as possible, immediately go and get this study pack. Register yourself, get this study pack. Okay, so today we are going to start with the second chapter of history of standard 10th CBSE. Okay, the name of the chapter is Nationalism in India. As usual, I am once again reminding you, please open your textbook, a notebook and keep a pen or pencil ready. Okay, you know the purpose of the pen and pencil, right? Okay, so let us start with the second chapter, Nationalism in India. Now what is nationalism? Nationalism is a feeling of love for the country, for our own country, a feeling of pride for our own country. Okay, that is nationalism. It's a feeling that we always feel. We feel India is better than any other country in the world. That feeling is called nationalism. So we are going to study how nationalism spread in India. See, in India, before we got independent, there was a British rule, the colonial government. Okay, and this colonial government was suppressing us. Okay, they was suppressing us, the people of our country, in different ways. So in India, as in Vietnam is a small country in Asia, and many other colonies, the growth of modern nationalism is intimately connected to the anti-colonial movement. So we were fighting against this colony, that is the Britishers, and in this anti-colonial movement, this helped us to bring this feeling of nationalism in the Indians. Okay, people began discovering the unity in the process of the struggle for independence. Okay, the sense of being oppressed under colonialism provided a shared bond that tied different groups in India. Okay, the different groups in India were all fighting for independence. They wanted independence from the British colonies. Okay, so this was a single bond which was shared by all different types of groups in India. See, these different groups, they were oppressed, they suffered oppression from the Britishers in different ways. Their object or what their feeling of freedom or what they wanted freedom was for different purposes. The idea of freedom was different, but one thing that was shared by everyone was that they wanted that this British rule should go. Okay, the Congress under Mahatma Gandhi tried to forge these different groups within one movement. Okay, so Gandhiji, who was the leader of the Congress at that time, he thought that this single point or the single idea, okay, should be that everyone wants to get freedom from the Britishers. We can bring all these different groups together, but that was not easy. Okay, we have already learned about this freedom struggle in our earlier standards. Okay, today in this chapter we are going to study about the freedom movement after 1920s. Basically, we are going to see the two movements, the non-cooperation movement and the civil disobedience movement in detail. Okay. Now, let's come to the first part of this chapter. The First World War, Khilafat and the non-cooperation movement. Okay. As you know, the First World War took place between 1914 and 1918. Because of the First World War, the economical and the political situation throughout the world changed drastically. Because of the war, the countries who took part in the war had to spend a lot of money on defense. For this, to finance this defense expenditure, what they had to do? They had to take loans and they had to impose taxes. So, India was also a part. These Britishers who had taken part in the war, we as their colony were forced to take part in the war. So what they did was that they started imposing taxes. Custom duties were raised and a new tax called the income tax was introduced. So at the same time, inflation also increased between 1913 and 1918. Means the prices of goods started increasing from 1913 to 1918. This led to a lot of hardship for the common people. Or taxes were imposed, inflation increased, and at the same time what happened? An epidemic like influenza also started. Okay. Now, villages, in most of the villages, the youth from the villages were forcibly taken in the army. They were recruited in the army as soldiers. They were forced to do work as soldiers in the army because Britishers wanted soldiers. So what they used to do? They used to forcibly take people from the villages, and so the villagers were unhappy. They were angry, I can say. Okay. At the same time, what happened was that in 1918-19 and 1920-21, there was a huge famine. Taxes increased, inflation was there. So there was famine, and because of famine, there was a huge acute food shortage. Okay, there was acute food shortage. And at the same time, there was an epidemic of influenza. Just like now we have a pandemic like corona. Same way, there was an epidemic like influenza, and in those years, according to the census of 1921, around 12 to 13 million people died because of famines and epidemic. Just imagine 12 million people, 12 to 13 million people died because of this what you call epidemic and the famine. Okay. See, at the same time, what happened was that a new leader appeared, and his name was Mahatma Gandhi. So, Mahatma Gandhi returned to India in January 1950. He had come from South Africa, and what he did at South Africa, he had successfully agitated against the racist policy of that government through a new weapon called the Satyagraha. Okay, a mass agitation, and that was Satyagraha. Okay, the idea of Satyagraha emphasizes the power of truth. Satyagraha matlab Satya ka agraha. Okay, the idea of Satyagraha means what it emphasizes the power of truth and need to search for truth. What did Satyagraha suggest? Satyagraha suggested that if the cause was true, means if you are fighting for a true cause and if the struggle was against injustice, then physical force was not necessary to fight the oppressor. What did it mean? That if you are fighting for a true cause and if you are fighting for injustice, then you need not have physical force to fight against the oppressor. Okay, you don't have to beat the oppressor. Okay, without seeking vengeance or being aggressive, a satyagrahi could win the battle through non-violence. That was what Gandhiji said and Gandhiji believed. And how can this be done? He said this can be done by appealing to the conscience of the oppressor. What he said was that people, including the oppressor, had to be persuaded. The oppressor had to be persuaded to see the truth instead of being forced to accept truth through use of violence. Gandhiji said was that the oppressor who is oppressing you should accept truth through non-violence. You should not force your truth on him, because if you force the truth, it won't last for long. So let him, what we have to do is to appeal to his conscience to accept the truth. Okay? And that way we can fight against the oppressor. Mahatma Gandhi believed that his dharma of non-violence could unite all Indians. What Mahatma Gandhi did was, after arriving in India, he organized satyagraha movements in different parts of the country, in various places. In 1916, he travelled to Champaran. Where is Champaran? Champaran is in Bihar. To inspire the peasants to struggle against the oppressive plantation system. What was happening in Champaran was that the Britishers, the colonists, were forcing the peasants to grow indigo in their fields. Why? Because they wanted indigo for their cotton mills in England. So they were forcing. So Gandhiji, held a satyagraha in Champaran, okay, to support the struggle against the oppressive plantation system. Then in 1917, he organized a satyagraha in Kheda district of Gujarat. There, Kheda district of Gujarat, to support the peasants of Kheda, because the peasants of Kheda, what had happened was that because of the famine, the growth of crop had been failed. There was no growth of crop. Crop growth had failed. There was famine and there was a plague epidemic. So the peasants of Kheda were not able to pay taxes, the revenue, and they wanted a relaxation in revenues from the British government. The British government was not giving. So Gandhiji came to Kheda to support his prisoners, and he started satyagraha over there. Then he came in 1918. He came to Ahmedabad to support the mill workers, cotton mill workers of Ahmedabad. Again, he had a satyagraha in Ahmedabad. So in 1916, he went to Champaran to support the peasants over there. Then he again came in 1970, came to Kheda in Gujarat to support. He had a satyagraha in Kheda in Gujarat to support the peasants in Kheda. Then in 1918, he went to Ahmedabad to support the mill workers. And since he got success in all these three places, he thought that he should now start a satyagraha which will be not in a certain place but throughout the nation. Okay. So in 1919, Gandhiji decided to launch a nationwide satyagraha against the Rowlatt Act. Now what was this Rowlatt Act? Rowlatt Act was an act which was passed by the Imperial Legislative Council, even though the Indian members of the council had opposed this Rowlatt Act. Why they wanted to pass it? Because this Rowlatt Act gave immense powers to the government to repress political activities. That means if they could arrest any political leader, any political worker without trial of court and sentence him to jail for 2 years. So that this gave what the government, because of the act, extra powers that they can immediately arrest anyone without any trial in the court, immediately arrest him and take him to the jail. Okay. So Mahatma Gandhi wanted non-violent civil disobedience against such unjust laws. So he said we should have a nationwide satyagraha against this laws. So what he did was that he said we'll start this with a hartal. Hartal means total ban, total shutdown, just like we have now is a lockdown that's been given by the government, but shutdown was by the people of the country. Okay, so we should start then on 6 April we'll have a hartal, that's a shutdown. So on 6 April what happened was that rallies were carried out nationwide in various cities. Workers went on strike in railway workshops and shops closed down. The government, the British government got alarmed and scared that if the railway workshop will shut down, the lines of communication, if railway workshop or the telephone shut down, then the lines of communication will stop. Okay, so the British administration decided to clamp down on these nationalist leaders. So they started picking up local leaders in Amritsar. Gandhiji was not allowed to enter Delhi, and on 10th April the police in Amritsar opened fire against a peaceful procession was going on. A peaceful procession against the British government was going on in Amritsar, and the police opened fire on this peaceful procession. Immediately, this provoked the people, and what they did, they started attacking on banks, post offices, railway stations, whatever they could see as a sign of government. Okay, where government buildings, there people started attacking. So immediately, when people started attacking in Amritsar, martial law was imposed. Now, what is martial law? Means the government, the police get full powers to shoot someone at sight. So, since people started attacking banks, railway stations, the government enforced martial law, and General Dyer took command of Amritsar. Okay. And on 13th April, the infamous Jallianwala Bagh massacre took place. Jallianwala Bagh is a place in Amritsar which is it is an enclosed ground, means it has been enclosed from all sides, and very small exit points are there. Okay, there is only one exit point, it is enclosed from all the sides by a wall. So you have to come and go through only one exit. Okay. So 13th April was a Baisakhi day, and people had gathered to celebrate Baisakhi because there was a Baisakhi fair. Many people from the villages had come to Baisakhi fair, and some people, they thought that this was a nice way to protest against the British oppressive policy and to get attention of the many people who were gathered there for the Baisakhi fair. The people who had come from the villages nearby, they didn't know that martial law was in force in Amritsar, because at that time there was no radio, no TV, no net, no internet. So people had come to, just like the annual Baisakhi fair, they had come to Jallianwala Bagh to celebrate. Okay, and at the same time some protesters came over there to protest against the British oppressive rule, so that they thought that they can bring that to the attention of the many people who were gathered in Jallianwala Bagh. So at the same time, General Dyer entered this area, Jallianwala Bagh. what he did, he asked the police to shut down the exit points, and he gave orders to the police to fire upon these people who were non-violent. They didn't have any arms. Okay, they had a peaceful gathering over there, but Hidayat asked the police to fire on them, and hundreds of people were killed in that firing. Okay, why did he do that? He wanted to bring a feeling of fear, terror among the people. Okay, and as this news of Jallianwala Bagh massacre, as you call it, spread, what happened was that people took to the streets in many North Indian towns. There were strikes, there were clashes with the people, with the police, and attacks on government buildings. People got very angry when they heard about the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and they clashed with the police. They attacked government officers. The government also responded with a very brutal repression, and he said that we now need to humiliate and terrorize people. So Satyagrahis were forced to rub their noses on the ground, crawl on the street. What the police did, they caught the Satyagrahis. They were asked to rub their noses on the ground. They were made to crawl on the streets and do salam to all sahibs. People were flogged, what do you mean by flogged? People were beaten by whips. Chabuk मालूम है आपको? Chabuk, okay, chabuk से मारना. People were flogged, and some villages were bombarded, like the village in Gujranwala Bagh. Gujranwala Bagh is now in today's Pakistan, Punjab province of Pakistan. Okay, and since Gandhiji saw that violence is spreading everywhere, Gandhiji called off this movement. While the Rowlatt Satyagraha had been a widespread movement, it was a widespread movement, but it was limited only in cities and towns. Mahatma Gandhi felt that to launch a more broad-based movement, he said spreading movement only in towns and cities won't help, because people live more in the villages. So people in the villages, each and every one should feel about nationalism, they should fight for freedom struggle, for the freedom of India. So Gandhiji thought to make it a broad-based movement, and he thought that this broad movement can be broad-based only when Hindus and Muslims unite. If Hindus and Muslims they came together, then only we will be able to fight the Britishers. Okay, and one way of doing this, he thought, was to support the Khilafat movement and to take up the Khilafat issue. Now, what is this Khilafat issue? So, during the First World War, the Ottoman Empire, a very big empire of Turkey, was defeated, and the emperor of the Ottoman Empire, who is called the Khalifa, is also considered by the Muslims as the agent of God, the Khalifa. Okay, he is considered the spiritual head of the Islamic world. Okay, he got defeated, and it was rumored that in the treaty which followed, it was a very harsh treaty for the Khalifa, and to defend the Khalifa's powers, a Khilafat committee was formed in Mumbai by some young Muslims, and there were two brothers, Shaukat Ali and Muhammad Ali, who had started the Khilafat movement. Okay, so Gandhiji met these two brothers, Shaukat Ali and Muhammad Ali. Okay, and they started a discussion of a united mass action for the freedom struggle as well as the Khilafat movement. At the Calcutta session of the Congress in September 1920, Gandhiji convinced other leaders of the Congress to start a non-cooperation movement in support of the Khilafat as well as for Swaraj. Now, what is non-cooperation? Gandhiji felt that Britishers could establish rule in India just because we cooperated with them. If we don't cooperate with them, this government or this British rule will collapse within a year. And because he thought that the British rule is there just because we are supporting them. Now, how could this non-cooperation movement be? Gandhiji proposed that this movement will do it in stages, one stage after another. First stage was that to surrender all the titles the British government had given to the elite classes. British government had given to the Sardar, the elite classes, certain titles like Sir, okay, so that these people, the elite people, should be biased to the British government. So Gandhi said that we should first surrender the titles and a boycott of civil services, army, police, courts and legislative councils, as well as schools, that those working in the administration will not go to work, those working in the court will not go to work, those working in the army, those working in the police, all Indians working in the army or working in the police, they should not go to work. People should boycott the government schools. They should not send their children to government schools and colleges. And people should also boycott foreign goods. So Gandhi thought when he boycott all these things, what will happen? The government will collapse. And when we do so, if the government starts repression action against the leaders, then we will start the civil disobedience campaign. So, through the summer of 1920, Mahatma Gandhi and Shaukat Ali toured throughout India extensively in support for to gather support for this movement. But many other Congress leaders were concerned about this proposal. They were reluctant to boycott the elections that were to be held in November 1920 for the council, and they feared that this movement may take a violent turn. So in the months between September to December of 1920, there was a lot of discussion, lot of stifle, fight inside the Congress, okay, within the Congress, okay. There were supporters who were supporting this movement, who were supporting this non-cooperation movement. There were people who were against this non-cooperation movement. Finally, in the Nagpur session, which was held in December 1920, a compromise was worked out and the non-cooperation program was adopted. Now, how did this non-cooperation movement was unfolded? How did it started? What happened in the non-cooperation movement? We are going to study in the next lecture. Okay, thank you.